Good evening, everyone. Today is the last day of February. Thank God. Thank God this horrible month is over. And I don't know my time limitations. I would like to do, I thought about doing 2 separate reports for today. Excuse me. Because, well, some of these dudes were still here. And these are ultimate, because today in the MILAB, I'm sorry, I'll back up. My name is Tori. I'm doing a report about the MILAB child trafficking operation, which is operated by DARPA and the CIA, and with FBI assistance, and basically all aspects of our government participate. Even the Department of Transportation, a guy showed up. I'm like, what, are you kidding me? Anyway, I'm sorry. Today, 14 children were killed in one MILAB location. And the dudes that killed the children were just here not too long ago. And I'm really amazed by this because Father God gave me the ability to read, to pull up people's DNA and read information from it. And that began for me in 2009, and it was 2010 that I started seeing people for what they really were, and seeing what species they were. But these dudes were 58% reptilian, 8% amphibian, 4% that's unknown to me, and then 10% insectian, and 20% human. And the first thing I thought of was, well, the other day, remember those other dudes? They were 19% human, and I've never seen that before. And so, you know, my first question was, how long, because, you know, usually when I read someone's DNA, I look at the human side, and people acquire new DNA usually when they come into a new galaxy. Like most of us humans in this galaxy acquired a new DNA about 6 million years ago. A lot of us came from Andromeda, a lot of us came from other like the Sombrero galaxy or whatever. There's a lot. One guy, I know 17 galaxies lived in with the same DNA. I'm like, damn, aren't you tired? Well, anyway, they, the 14 children, I'm sorry, let me back up. They were flown here by the Air Force to Andrews Air Force Base, and they were refugee children from the United States of America's war crime against Syria. And, you know, where several million people have been murdered. And they love to do this, and AFRICOM does the same thing. They go into like a little African village, they kill all the adults, and then they take the children and haul them over to the United States, because, you know, the United States has such an appetite to rape and murder children. And so, you know, my question was, how long have they had that configuration? Because 5 species person, a person that has 5 species, that's, you know, that's not natural. It's laboratory created. And the answer was 3 decades that I saw. And then I looked a little bit closer. It was 1978. And the people that it was done by the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki oversaw this operation. But what was interesting, it was the Insectians that gave the technology to the Anunnaki. Now, most Anunnakis, you remember, have 4 species, or 4 species people. Reptilian, Amphibian, Insectian, and Human. Because they like to be a little, you know, little of everything in the pot. But the Tall Whites were the ones, and they were still living in these underground bases out west. It was 1978 when these bodies were created. And then they do all this stuff where they move souls around. And, you know, I don't know how that works, but one time I pulled 247 human children's souls out of John Brennan. I thought, well, that's real nice. This guy was a director of the CIA for the American division anyway. Well, he had his hands in everything. And, but, you know, to murder all those children, you know, because we're talking, because like the Army just came in a little while ago too. And because they didn't know, because the Army, I tell them they're stupid because they just believe what they're told. I'm like, why don't you verify? Why don't you go out and verify the information that's given to you? Because we're talking about the 819 who were arrested, the Bushes, you know, Dick Cheney, the 12 from the Vatican, Queen Elizabeth. Her trial's over, by the way. And there's 15 trials that are over. Of the 819, the Rockefellers, the Rothschild. Boy, I was glad to see that bastard. What's his name? Jorge Bergoglio, Pope, whatever his name is. His trial he's not one of the 15. Barbara Bush's trial's over, and so is her husband. Ugh. But I'm sorry. Anyway, where was I? I talking about the children too. These 14 children were raped twice at the MILAB. They took them to the Roswell MILAB. They arrived in Washington D.C. and then they took them by the high-speed rail out to Roswell. And that was by DARPA employees. They raped them once they were in the MILAB. So usually DARPA employees don't rape the children with the invited guests. The CEOs, the military men, the police officers, the politicians. It's mostly politicians who do all that because they find out, really, I can have any political office I want and all you have to do is kill a little kid? Sign me up. That's America for you. Don't you love our country? And so I pulled up their DNA, and they were raped 116 times by the Air Force on the total for all children. And I wanted to know how many times this group of 14 children were raped total before the point where they went through the door to go into the MILAB, where they were raped 2 times by the DARPA employees. And their DNA said 647 times that this group of 14 children have been raped. And you know what? I've already got 6 minutes, so I think I'm just going to cut it there because I want to do a report about, well, I know these 13 FBI agents, and because a lot of FBI agents rape and murder children, but I think I'm going to do that in a separate report. And yeah, those children, they were just raped repeatedly. But once they got in, these dudes I told you about, the ones 58% reptilian and the 5 species men, they were the ones that killed the children in the Roswell MILAB today. It's 29 February 2016. And my name is Tori Smith. And by the way, all this information can be verified. I would go directly to the Hall of Justice. But you can also, if you just have general questions, you can go to the Hall of Research or the Hall of Records if you want. The Hall of Records is more about statistics. And but I also recommend that you go to the Temple of